Coming at you now with a rambling session. The Brandon Taylor Podcast, yeah! What's going on, guys? Brandon Taylor here from Delphic Argonauts with episode 2 of the Brandon Taylor Podcast. Excuse me. So, I'm starting to find these podcasts to be more interesting to do than I had originally anticipated, as I do find it helpful to work through the things that I have going on in my head, and also just kind of think about the stuff that's been going on for the past week, as I think it's been almost a week since the first episode was released. Yeah, it was Tuesday, right? Anyway. How you guys doing? Doing alright? I mean, with all things considering. Today, I'm recording this on the 15th of May, and it's been a week that I've been dealing with my current vehicle situation. With no fault of my own, by the way. So I was actually up in my room doing social media stuff and all that, Instagram, trying to interact with the people on all the hashtags and the stories and stuff like that, and just kind of have that open dialogue, hopefully to attract people to the band and stuff like that, and which it seems to be working. Been watching a lot of the videos from this gentleman who actually lives down here in Florida in Orlando, named Adam Ivy, which if you are trying to get your music out there to the people and you're trying to find the best way to do it in this musical climate that we find ourselves in 2021, his videos have been extremely helpful for me. But I was doing all this stuff for the band and all that, and all of a sudden I hear a collision happen outside my window. Sure enough, my vehicle was rear-ended by someone who apparently fainted in his truck. Had one payment, guys. One payment, and it would have been fully paid off. So I've been dealing with car dealerships and stuff like that, and a lot of them don't want to play ball. It's like every time that we go to try to get near to the point where we're ready to put the down payment and stuff like that, there's always something that comes up. So, you gotta do this, you gotta do that. And it's also the fact it's like the price that you get on vehicles these days with the amount of mileage on them, it's too much. If you were to look at it, Excuse me. Taking a drink. So for pretty much the past week, been dealing with all that. But it's been like one headache after another. Like I said, everyone has their own reason why we pretty much just can't do it there for whatever reason. But tomorrow, hopefully going through and actually have a success when getting a vehicle this time. I'm trying to stick with the vehicles that I know, which are the Nissan brands and Ford, stuff like that, and seeing which ones that I like the best. Oh, excuse me. But just kind of adds to the topic, these next two records that I'm working on past the New Dawn's Rising EP. The first record being that comes right after this is technically the full album release, the first full album release for Delphic Argonauts. It's called Rate of Chaos, which is the counterpart to the record that comes right after it, which that one's called Grip of Order, which kind of deals with the concept of yin and yang, which I kind of hinted at on the first episode that I did like a week ago or something. So with everything happening recently, not just the quarantine and stuff like that, but just in my life in general with the whole vehicle situation, it definitely goes with that idea, which is just pure chaos. Excuse me. And it just came out of nowhere. Couldn't. I mean, I had the vehicle parked. I wasn't even in it. And things were starting to get really good. I was in a positive state and stuff like that. And then life just comes in to give you a reminder that you can't predict of what's going to happen. All you can do is just really adjust to the chaos that's to come. Go to this, it happens, and all you can really do is just observe and learn from what that bed of chaos is trying to teach you. And it kind of goes with what Yin and Yang talks about, where each one has the dot that corresponds with the color of the opposite side. So where you could say that where I was like in a sense of order at the time, where everything was starting to go good and stuff like that, then all of a sudden you have this one incident of chaos that just comes in and it just distorts your world. It just plays into that. So now you have a choice when something like this happens. Do you allow yourself to dwell on it and let all these negative thoughts just consume your world, your thought process, and all that? Or do you let it be the next thing that you conquer? It is never easy if you make the decision to, attack it head on and stuff like that. But all you have to do is just begin. All you have to make, the hardest part is making the decision that you want to tackle it. And that's where I'm currently trying to get my mindset to be at. I'm continuing to do this stuff for the band and stuff like that. I'm trying to get myself from going deep into these negative thoughts when it comes to this whole process and stuff like that. Currently looking for, other vehicles and stuff like that, and just continuing on with the stuff I do. Because the alternative is to just make the hell that I'm currently in even worse and just sit around and do nothing. And just let the lazy river of this thing called life just carry me away and just lose control. And I choose not to let that happen. I choose to continue on and actually better myself from this. So currently, going back to the record, I'm actually currently working through the bass tracks. I've gotten like 2 or 3 songs done already with the bass tracks. Excuse me. Originally, I was trying to use the XFX for the bass tone, but it turns out that I'm not the best when it comes to trying to make a bass tone that actually works. At least not with the XFX. And I had a Fender what was it? The Fender Rumble or something like that I used when I played bass for this one cover band a while back, which I was able to find a way to make it sound good. But when I don't have like the actual bass in front of me and actually having an idea of how it works, I don't know what I'm doing. It's pretty much just like like a Hut and Peck kind of thing, for lack of a better term. So with the XFX, as much as I love that piece of gear that it's weird, It sets it up where it's like you're trying to mess with like a regular amp, but at the same time, it's almost all identical with having like 1 or 2 knobs that they add to represent the amp. So might have to do a video of me going through the XFX. I mean, that's one of the things I've been planning on doing, is going through and showing off the gear that I use for all the projects that I do, because I pretty much use the same stuff. I pretty much stick with the Dean brand guitars, which is a local guitar company here in Tampa. which we all know Dimebag Darrell from Pantera used for a good while, and the amps that I've been using for all these projects has been a version of the Axe-Fx. With the New Dawn's Rising, it was actually the producer / buddy of mine, Christian Neal, who's just been an awesome buddy of mine, who's helped me so much when it comes to learning how to mix, master, and just learning how to make good tone. I mean, he had the first version of the Axe-Fx 2, and we were able to get a decent sound out of that. But what I've used for these next two records, the Reign of Chaos and Grip of Order, is the XL version, which actually has a better processor, and I think it still has access to the latest update of the Axe-Fx 2. Just, I don't know, because for whatever reason, because I try to base most of my sound off of one amp, and it's based off the third channel of the Diesel Herbert, which to me it's my favorite amp of all time. And I try to use the identical settings on the first Axe-Fx 2 that Christian owns, and it just sounds, I mean, when I listen to the mix, what I've been doing here, recording at my own home bedroom studio here, it just sounds different, but, you know, like, not different in a way it sounds worse. To me, it actually sounds better, but it just could just be because of software and hardware difference and stuff like that. But, when it comes to what I'm using for the bass, I'm actually getting into the Neural DSP stuff, which I've kind of messed with over at a other person's place that I was jamming with for a little bit, because he had a bunch of the DSP stuff. I was using their version of, because I got to mess around with Joe Duplantier's tone, because they had just came out, which was, I mean, I love Joe's tone and Gojira. I mean, he's on record using the EVH, which I think that's probably my second favorite brand of amps, because it's pretty much, you know, Eddie Van Halen's tone that he took with him after he parted ways with Peavey and made his own amp company. I mean, I especially love the cabs that EVH makes, because they, according to a buddy of mine, I think the speakers that they use is called the G12H30, as opposed to the vintage 30s. That, like a lot of the Mesas, and especially Orange, they use those. And it's just, for some reason, I can't make the vintage 30s sound good. And it's also, even then, everyone's used that speaker to hell and back, so it's like, trying to be original with it, it's pretty hard to do at this point. So, but I mean, that's if you want to go through an actual cab. I mean, they have cabs that they have what is it called? Impulse response? Yeah, impulse responses that are already loaded into the Axe-Fx that you can use, which are based off of different amps and different mics and preamps and stuff like that, which, when I'm using what's already in the box, I pretty much use like a mixture of the 5153 cabs mixed with a Mesa with was it a 57 Shure SM57, and with the 5153 I use, no, it's actually the reverse. So with the EVH 5153 cab, I'll use a 57 on that, and then I'll use a condenser mic. I think it's the 417, whichever that one is connected to, for the Mesa, because it just brings out more of the low end. Because pretty much my idea with using two different cabs for that stereo effect, I have one side bringing out the high end, the high mids, which is, I'm relying on the 5153 to do that, and with the Mesa cab, I rely on that to bring the low end. because I've messed with, all of the Mesa cabs in the past, and all of them to me were always great at bringing out just that low bottom end, as made famous by Metallica, which everyone still gives me shit for listening to, but to me, I will always be a diehard Metallica fan, Saint Anger included. But we all can agree that Lulu is definitely it's something that should never be talked about. I mean, all I could say what was great about that, I want to say great, but good about that piece of work, I wouldn't even call it a record. It's just the guitar tone I really like. I mean, it's classic Metallica, like modern day Metallica tones. And we could always relate to the meme that came out of that I am the table. I am the table. When a buddy of mine actually told me that actually was a vocal line, I couldn't believe him. And then he actually played a video that actually had that, and I'm like, are you kidding me? What was I talking about originally? Oh yeah, Reign of Chaos. Been working through the bass on it. And I guess what I could do is kind of just touch up on what I have planned for that. So as I said, it is the first full release record for Delphic Argonauts. And it's actually the first album that I've done where I recorded it all myself. I mean, I had another project way back in the day. It was called Outworld, which it kind of has a similar vibe, but this one has a more... How could I compare it? I understood what I was trying to do with this. With Outworld, I just couldn't relate to it. Especially when I had some life-changing events happen during the time that Outworld was made. When those events happened, I just couldn't connect with that music anymore, and it was way too neurotic. With at least this, even though it is chaotic and very dark at times, it had an end goal where I could actually say I was confident in what the message it was saying. Because even though it does have the dark moments, it does have that ending of positiveness where you're not left hating life and stuff like that and thinking that this is the end. So it does act as like a sort of catharsis, but it gives you a beam of hope, which the Grip of Order has a similar thing, but it's the inverse in the middle part of it. Well, with Reign of Chaos, you have where it goes to the deepest pits of like darkness and stuff like that. Like, take for example, one song is called "The Bullshit of the World." "Fury of Hatred" is another one. It's talking about if you allow the shadow that we all have inside of us, the part of us that we deny that we would be able to do. If you allow that to control you, this is what would happen. And it kind of touches on that, and with the character, which at this point, the other difference I will say when it comes to the person where it was like a third person kind of thing with New Dawn's Rising, this one here, or I tried to separate myself from the character for that. This one here is pretty much me. It's like me pretty much having this inner dialogue with myself, which is kind of, I mean, you could say is narcissistic, but for me it was pretty much me for my own therapy. So, because as I said, I think I stated previously in the first episode of the podcast, where most of this music was written during the initial quarantine of 2020 with COVID and stuff like that. And the 2 weeks that I actually had to stay home and not be able to really go out and do much. being locked up in my room, and anytime I would go out and do stuff in the living room and stuff like that, I would have to wear a mask the whole time. I had to stay away from my parents and stuff like that. So the whole time, all I could really do besides watch TV, YouTube, and play video games was just have self-reflection and writing music and stuff like that. That's pretty much all I could do for 2 weeks. I think I stated before as well that it was actually that part was worse than the actual sickness. But and the other thing is, I've heard other people would have worse symptoms than what I had, which is just crazy. You would think it'd be consistent, but then again, we're all built differently. But during those 2 weeks, a good majority of these songs came out, not just the Reign of Chaos stuff, but also a couple of the songs in the Grip of Order stuff. Like, a couple of songs I could think of automatically that came out was The Possession, Warrior, and Bullshit of the World, and Face the Beast Within for Reign of Chaos. And then if we were to go to Grip of Order... I do that. Which one here? Metallic Legion and Greyfire were the two that I remember specifically coming out of that quarantine process. And where am I going with this? So yeah, it's pretty much about, because the thought of yin and yang and trying to find balance was a major part during that time too, because I came to the realization that just my mood swings, and when it came to a lot of the interactions between people that I would talk to on a regular basis, it's very awkward. Like the whole body language stuff and stuff like that you're supposed to be able to pick up, and how you're supposed to handle this one situation over the other, finding the balance, all of that. I just never thought of that when I was younger. So I didn't know how to approach certain interactions. So where some of them would be, a decent interaction, it'd be all copacetic between everybody. Others would just be like, what happened? So the analyzation, the self-reflection, stuff like that kind of helped put my thought process in the right direction. So, because pretty much after the quarantine, I immediately went back to my day job, and I did, during that time, I told myself I would work on these next 2 records. So, but I told myself what I would do if I was going to tackle any certain part of one record. I would only focus on that part, and then once that was done, I would do that for the opposite part, so that way both records got the amount of time that they both deserved. Because the last thing I would want to do ever would be to half-ass a record. So going through, so I try to keep the amount of play time for both records to be about the same, because let's count here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So Reign of Chaos has 12 songs, and Grip of Order has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, 9, 11 songs. So they're, maybe one song off for each. But, one complements the other. So both records have riffs that kind of, harken back to a riff from one of the earlier songs. And all of this is supposed to lead up to a third record, which would be, so it'd make it a whole trilogy where you try to meet in the middle of all of this. So where you have black and white, the third record would be, kind of like the gray area. Because one of the things when it comes to writing music and stuff like that, I'm very, every riff, every type of sound has a particular color to me. For example, if you've seen the cover of New Dawn's Rising, it's like blue and green are very big. Like those were the colors that were used most in the cover. Which when I talked to the artist, which on Instagram she goes by the name Pumpkin Lilies, which you should give her a check. You should check her out because a lot of the stuff that she does is really cool. And the cover art she did for the EP is further proof of that. But I specifically told her that, at least when blue had to be a big thing, because all of the music screamed the color blue to me. Different shades and stuff like that, but it was still on that spectrum of colors. But with, take for example, Reign of Chaos, it's more black with, sprinkles of red, dark green, like a slime green, red. And Grip of Order has, this color of white, blue, yellow, light red, grayish green, stuff like that, so. And each one is supposed to, you're supposed to kind of envision that as you're listening to the music, which that's just the basis. It gives you the color patterns that you'd be using to formulate the vision of what the music is supposed to represent. So hang on, one more drink. Excuse me. I'm talking a lot here. I've been talking a lot for the past week. So as you're, when you hear each song, it's pretty much like a particular scenario, a particular scene, and the whole story that's being told in it. So you have the first song that starts off with, with the beginning of the conflict. And then each song continues on, and then you reach the climax, and then you have the ending that pretty much is the aftermath for each record. And as you hear the energy levels go up and down between all the songs, you'll kind of get that idea. So, but when it comes to the third record, I have a ton of riffs that I feel like would be in that ballpark of what it's probably going to be. But I already know that I probably won't know where the starting off point for that will be until after the finishing up of these two records. Sitting down, listening to them, and figuring out the actual message of what it's actually trying to tell me. And then I'm pretty sure, and the other processes with that is the Carl Jung book, The Archetype and the Collective Unconscious, kind of plays into all this as well, because it kind of tackles the same thing about dealing with the shadow, the enema, stuff like that. And it exists, all of that existing in, the yin yang symbol, chaos and order, duality and stuff like that. So that's what, at least, so the concept of duality, that's what these two records are dealing with. And then the third record is supposed to be the closing of what did we learn? How can we better ourselves to when we are dealing with whenever chaos comes? How do you deal with it? But how do you allow yourself to keep order without it causing you to stagnate with your growth process? Not just physically, but mentally as well. So I've gone from talking about cars to trying to be philosophical with music. That's just the way I roll, man. Rambling? Heck yeah. And we are now approaching 30 minutes into this. Where do I want to go from here? I have the intention to make video. The next video that I'm going to be posting on YouTube is to talk about the guitars that I've been using for all the projects that I've used, starting with the Thoroughbred Stealth, which is the single cutaway Les Paul-esque body shape that Dean Guitars makes. And the Stealth version, just to kind of give a synopsis, it's a satin black finish with it started with EMG pickups, but I've since replaced them with Fishmans, and it's pretty much been the main workhorse for the New Dawn's Rising EP in these past two records. And I loved playing on the guitar. I mean, it has that weight that I like it's very heavy. But at the same time, I've come to realize as much as I like the active sound of the Fishmans and being able to split to the single coil sound, because I really do like the single coil sound for a clean tone. I really do like the openness of the passive pickups, specifically the sound that I've been able to get out of the Seymour Duncan Nazgul. Seymour Duncan Nazgul. Sounds better that way. Instead of trying to say it all at once. So, I want to be able to make a pickup to where I can get that open passive tone, but be able to split the coils without losing too much in the way of volume, and it actually sounding more authentic of a single coil sound in one guitar. I mean, if that is ever possible, I mean that is the question. I mean, the Fishmans have come close enough for the single coil sound and a humbucker combination, but even then, I could still hear a difference when it comes to the single coil sound and what an actual single coil pickup sounds like. But maybe that day will come, just not maybe now. And then other videos, because I do have a second Thoroughbred, which actually has passive pickups, which is their Select series, which is very interesting. And then of course I got the Axe effects I would like to talk about. What else? I mean, the ideas are going to be coming. I mean, at this point, this is pretty much all I have to work with in my head right now. I mean, the Instagram stuff has been going well so far, being able to, interact with people, not just on my posts, but on their stuff. So, I mean, I'm still trying to keep Facebook in the plan of working with, but at the same time, it just seems like I've get better results on Instagram. And then, of course, you got YouTube, stuff like that. And the idea with the podcast, I'm thinking with episode 3, it's just going to be another... I kind of like the idea of it being, with the solo stuff, where it's just me. It's being more of just kind of like a life update, and then also kind of talking about the music and stuff like that. Because by the time, if I do another solo one, if episode 3 is going to be a solo one, I'm going to have more of the Reign of Chaos and Grip of Order records finished. So I'll be able to talk more about that stuff. And then when it comes to, because I'm trying to plan out where I have guests, where, hang on, is this what we're gonna do? Okay, yeah, I'm good. So I'm trying to make a second thing of the podcast where certain episodes can be with guests, whether it be friends or some of the guys in music that I know, that we could talk about stuff, whether it be stuff in their career or just random stuff about music and other stuff. It doesn't always have to be music, but I would like to have music as the main thing we talk about. I'm trying to plan that out. Got a buddy of mine who's actually going to be the guest vocalist on one of the songs for Reign of Chaos. If you guys look up the band Burial at Sea, I have actually played live with them once, and I'm pretty much good friends with all of them, but the person in question is Mick Sawyer. I mean, one of the better local vocalists here in Florida that I've actually, I've had the pleasure of meeting and befriending. I'd like to have like at least one episode with him, or be a regular guest. We talk about stuff, music, political stuff, food, and just random stuff. Kind of like a Joe Rogan, but with a particular focus on music. So that is pretty much my ambition for the podcast, as I really do feel like it is kind of helping me work through a lot of the stuff going in my head and helping me move forward. Because that's ultimately what we as humans need to figure out, what we need to do to be able to move forward from where we're standing if something negative happens. Because the last thing you want to do is be stuck in the same spot. Not grabbing your life and actually moving forward, and letting other people dictate how your life is going to be. Because, hang on, I need another drink. Because if you think about it, when it comes to how life operates, it's all about the human interaction and stuff like that. Because besides like natural causes and stuff like that, a lot of the stuff that we go through when it comes to anything positive, negative, if it's not caused by by your own hand, it's caused by somebody else because of certain circumstances and stuff like that. So in some ways it tells you to be smart about who the people that you want to align yourself with are. So the friends you had during high school, are they really going to be the people you want to have to stick around with you 10 years down the road? Are they going to be the ones to help lift you up to your goals? Or are they just going to keep you down and keep them on their level because they choose not to do something with their life? That's what I've been trying to do. Out of all the friends that I still keep in contact with from high school, I think I can only name maybe 4, maybe 5. But other than that, all the friends that I have now, they're either coworkers or people I've had interactions with outside of high school. So, I think the number for what they say, that when it comes to events outside of high school, after high school, you pretty much lose 85% or more of the circle of friendship that you had during that time in high school by the time you leave high school. So, because if you think because everyone goes their own way. The one thing you guys had in common was that you guys went to school, and it's like once you leave high school and stuff like that, pretty much the gate is open, and once you walk past that gate, when it closes behind you, you're pretty much left on your own. So in that point, you have to make the decision of what you're going to do after that moment. So, and you only have one chance to actually make something out of your life. So you gotta capture it, you gotta let it slip. Yeah, I'll find a way to make an Eminem reference here. Oh, even though I haven't listened to that man in, let's see, 2 decades now, actually. I just can't get into new rap anymore. I just can't. It's all the fucking same when it comes to, the beats, the way they just mumble into the fucking mic, and, it's all about money this, sex that, and stuff like that, whereas back in the day, where you had, like, the West Side Connection stuff, they had a message to say, so, but anyway, I've been rambling on long enough here. We're gonna continue on episode 3, which today is, like I said, the 15th of May. Try to make it, and this particular podcast will be released on the 16th, which is tomorrow. So I'm going to try to have the podcast be a Sunday release. So, so this is going to be the end of episode 2, and I'm hoping to have, like I said, keep this on a regular basis where I can release these on Sundays. So, I hope you guys have a good rest of your day, your weekend, and I'm hoping next week is positive for you. So, enjoy the rest of your evening. This is Brandon Taylor of Delphic Argonauts, signing off. See ya!